We want to turn to the latest on the Russian election meddling investigation. Fox News has confirmed that Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team has interviewed former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon. The interview took 20 hours this week, and Mueller's team asked Bannon for details on the firing of FBI Director Jim Comey and National Security Executive Michael Flynn. Meanwhile, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff is looking into contempt proceedings against Bannon, who was uncooperative, he said, in a closed-door interview with the House Intelligence Committee. Watch.
This morning, Steve Bannon returned to our committee, and we asked a whole host of questions about his time during the transition, during the administration, and after the administration. He refused to answer almost all of the questions and asserted that he had been instructed by the White House to invoke executive privilege on behalf of the president. The breadth of that claim of executive privilege is breathtaking and insupportable.
Joining us right now is the Daily Caller editor-in-chief, Christopher Bedford. Christopher, good to see you, sir. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
What's going to be the outcome here for Steve Bannon? What's your take on what you just heard from Adam Schiff?
Steve Bannon's not in a very good place right now at all. He's been basically pushed out of the White House. He's been pushed out of his old company, Breitbart, and now he's trying to cite executive privilege to protect himself. And that's not uncommon in any administration, this tug of war when Congress comes after the executive to say, you know what, you don't have any right to come after me here. You have to back off. And that's going to be a tug of war that's going to play out. You know, he's probably got a point. A lot of this will fall under executive privilege, but it's still really not an enviable place to be. And we've seen him kind of putting some distance here right now. You have Reince Priebus coming out in an upcoming book, who was an ally of Bannon, saying that he was very much against the Comey firing. We'll see how it all shakes out.
You know, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, James Freeman here with the Journal. From what we've been told, a lot of that time with Special Counsel Mueller was focused on a potential theoretical obstruction case, which would suggest that they're still looking for collusion evidence. Is that how you read it?
That's exactly what they're supposed to be doing, but it's such a broad authority that the Mueller team has been given. They're going through banking records, and they're still looking for a collusion problem here. Here's the issue, is they've been at this for about a year, and not a single thing has shown up that shows any kind of collusion at all, especially involving Russia. And the question is going to come down to if firing, why Comey was fired. And was he fired because he was too hot on the tail of the White House, or was he fired because he wasn't a sincere player that could be counted on?
Well, this is a really important point that we're raising here, because you have reported, the Daily Caller have reported, new findings on the Department of Justice official Bruce Ohr, who provided research on President Trump to the FBI. I say research loosely. We know that there has obviously been collusion and corruption at the top of the FBI. They were protecting Hillary Clinton. They were all in the tank for Hillary, and they were creating lots of booby traps for this president. Ohr's wife was being paid by Fusion GPS. There's Bruce Ohr. Here you have the #3 guy at the Department of Justice. His wife works for Fusion GPS, the firm that wrote this unverified so-called dossier, and she was paid by the Democratic National Committee. So Bruce Ohr provides no conflict of interest waivers, an offense punishable with jail time. What can you tell us about this situation, Christopher? Obviously, there was a lot of omissions, whether it be the FBI omitting information to the FISA court that the Democrats were paying for that dossier, or Bruce Ohr, #3 guy at the Department of Justice, doesn't tell anybody that his wife is actually doing the dossier work for Fusion GPS.
Every single bit of this onion we've peeled back has looked worse and worse, and the people who are involved have been trying to hide it. Simpson, the founder of Fusion GPS, originally said in August 2017 he had no contact with anyone at the DOJ. It turned out that wasn't true. He had contact with Bruce Ohr. He said he knew Bruce Ohr separately through Steele. Turns out he may not have. Turns out that he employed Bruce's wife, Nellie. Turns out he was paying her. And if you look at the records which we pulled for 2014, 2015, and 2016, all of which should have listed this, it's not in there. There's no inclusion of Fusion GPS paying a salary, which is, by every lawyer we've spoken to, would have been required. Now, what's dangerous here, too, for Bruce, who could be in a lot of trouble over here, he could be facing criminal penalties, is he wasn't even assigned to this case when he would have had the chance to recuse himself. From everything we understand, he took this dossier and put it in front of the FBI of his own volition. He didn't recuse himself. He didn't say anything like that. And he didn't list the name of Fusion GPS like he should have. That's punishable if he just didn't include the information, and that's all they can say. It's punishable by up to a year in prison. But if he knowingly falsified these documents by not telling the FBI about a conflict that really and truly existed, that's up to 5 years in prison.
So do you think we're going to see accountability then, Christopher? That's what everybody wants to know. I mean, there was obviously wrongdoing here at the top of the FBI and in front of the FISA court and at the top of the Department of Justice. We're talking right now about Mr. Ohr. You say criminal charges could come?
We don't know exactly why he got demoted at the Department of Justice, but we do know it happened right after it came out that his wife had been being paid by an outside source that brought a conflict of interest, and he brought that conflict of interest into the FBI. That seems pretty clear-cut, and the FBI is obviously onto it. A head like his could definitely roll, and I think he will face consequences right now. He's got Republicans in the executive and the legislature and the public saying, what's going on here? There's a lot of pressure, but if it will go higher than that, that remains to be seen.
We're going to get the James Freeman. We're going to get the Michael Horowitz Inspector General report.
Right.
A new updated report in the next couple of weeks. I think some of these people are being reassigned and fired because their hands are dirty based on this inspector report that we haven't seen.
Well, it's just on what we've seen so far in terms of how the Hillary Clinton email investigation was handled. It would appear that this report is something to fear for a lot of the top staff at the FBI and the Justice Department. Chris, I'm wondering if you have a sense of what we can expect when that report comes out.
Well, the report's originally looking at the handling of the Clinton email case and all of these things that happened in the lead up to the election. So there's a lot of investigations going on right now at the FBI. How did they handle the Trump case? How did they handle the Clinton case? Meanwhile, they're investigating themselves and they're investigating the executive. People are worried at the FBI about what this IG report's going to say, and it's certainly not looking like it's going to look good for the FBI. The Inspector General's job is to sniff out these things. We already know that the IG has found massive mistakes with the FBI. For example, the IG is who pulled up that the FBI hadn't even found the classified emails that were marked C in Hillary Clinton's email stats they had. Really embarrassing mistakes, and I think you're going to see more embarrassing mistakes exposed soon.